Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good serious topic for you today. Let's do it. What serious encounter gives you chills to this day? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My friend and I went hiking in the Painted Desert next to where we lived. Places we had hiked 1,000 times growing up, and we were only maybe half a mile from my house when we climbed a mesa, and there was a big valley full of gravel and fossils, and nothing else on the other side. It was huge. There was no way we could have missed it on all our other hikes. If we approached from any other direction, it wasn't there. Just mesas and the valleys between, boulders, petrified wood, usual Painted Desert stuff. But climb over that one mesa, and there it is. So, we went back and went down there because we were dumbass teenagers, and we realized there was also bones in there, a lot of them. Rabbits and coyotes mostly. And we were stuck for hours trying to find a way out that wasn't too gravelly and steep. We just kept sliding back down. Finally managed to get back out the way we came, but I really was starting to think we were going to die in a place that doesn't exist. When I was 12, my parents worked graveyards, and I remember staying up with my siblings playing video games at 3 a.m., and all of a sudden, we hear voices outside of the front door. We knew for sure it couldn't be our parents, so I slowly tiptoed to our door, which had a two-way screen, so we could see them and not vice versa. We look out the door window opening, and two guys wearing masks, and distinctly remember hearing, "You think anyone is in there? Doesn't matter." My neighbor across the street had a finicky motion sensor that could be triggered by those classic red laser pointers, so my brother lit it up, and the two gentlemen at my door quickly hurried off. If I had to guess, they'd been watching my neighborhood and assumed my parents were single without kids, working graveyards. I don't know. Trying on clothes in the fitting room when suddenly hearing the PA announcer they're closing the store due to an active shooter situation. I've never put on clothes faster in my life. I frantically ran out half-dressed to find everyone huddled in the back of the store. That was a terrifying afternoon. I'm sharing a more recent story. I have a lot, but this one is kind of fresh on my mind. It was kind of late at night, around 11. My ex ordered me a lift so I could go to his house. I got in the car and had a bad feeling in my spine, but the dude was already there and canceling would have cost $24. Plus, my mom and boyfriend knew, and if I didn't text in even a half hour, they'd know what was up and had tracking on my phone. The dude started talking to me immediately, had kinda creepy eyes. I was nice, but not in the mood to talk to him. He asked if I lived at the apartment, and I said no, which was pretty creepy to me. He started talking out of nowhere about how he moved from the country Jordan and had no friends or anyone to talk to, and I didn't know what to say and apologized, sort of. He talked about not knowing what field of work he wanted to go into and asked about me, and I answered broadly that I was an artist. I was starting to get really nervous. He then blurred out if I could draw him a picture of himself and wanted a way for me to send the picture to him when I was done without any lead-up. Specifically, was forceful about giving him my number. I started to panic and lied, giving him a burner Insta account purposefully so he didn't have that info. I also noticed the whole time he was driving very slow. I wanted to text my ex and mom, but thought for a second I left my phone at home. The dude literally offered to drive me back to my apartment despite being 10 miles away and doing it for free, which really made my blood rush. I left a hair strand in case crap hit the fan. I kept going on about being so alone and how he tried dating apps even though I mentioned I was going to my boyfriend's house. It felt like forever. I kept swerving away from his convo, and then I was finally at my ex's place. He was furious and contacted Lyft. I blocked him and deleted the burner account. One time I used Tinder and saw that same dude, blocked. I feel like if I gave him my number or told him that I lived where he picked me up, that something very bad could have happened. I mean, he could have been genuinely looking for a friend, but that's not the way to do it, and comes off really creepy. So, your instincts were right, and you did the right thing, so anyway, bye.
Use Uber.
When I was about 10, my parents had decided to move from Queensland to Melbourne. We moved states by car because we had a dog and didn't want to risk the whole pets and planes situation. The trip was about 2 days long, not including stops and rest. So, we were driving through the Pilliga Forest at this point, which is a very dense amount of forest land between New South Wales and Queensland, I think, and it's known to have a lot of paranormal history and scary stories. It was the middle of the night, and we had to pull over on the side of the road to let our dog out for a pee. So we all decided we'd get out of the car and stretch our legs. You're not really supposed to exit your vehicle when you're in the Pilliga. At this point, my older brother and I were around the side of the car on our phones. Dad was with the dog toward the side of the trees, and Mum was fixing the dog's bedding in the boot. Out of absolutely nowhere, some old creepy looking man, and when I say creepy, I mean like slasher serial killer creepy. This guy had come up behind my mum out of nowhere and had asked what we were doing out in the forest. My mum, very clearly creeped out, answered that we were moving states by car. The guy then rambles off something about travel time and plane expenses and stuff. He then says, "Stay right here, I'll go get you something." And he walks off into the dark behind the car. Keep in mind, we were dead in the middle of the Pilliga at this point. There's no servos, or buildings, or parks, or anything in this forest. So where this guy came from, we had no idea. And we're fully convinced he was going to murder us. He could have gotten away with it too. After the guy had walked far enough, my dad literally picked up our dog, who's a fully grown Dalmatian, and shoved him in the back of the boot. My mom was ushering us into the car, and my parents drove off so fast I've never seen before. Till this day, I still have no idea where that guy came from. He wasn't even using a flashlight, and it still scares me to think that, because the forest is so dense and is rarely driven through. He really could have gotten away with killing us. He might have been a nice guy though, but you never know. My dad, who I'll call Alan, had a specific coat, a fleecy checked one, not a hoodie. When I was 9, he died. A few weeks later, my mom, who I'll call Vicky, took up delivering the yellow pages for extra money and occasionally took her friend with her. It was on one of these occasions that this happened. I think if it was just my mom, she wouldn't have believed it. It was hot, and my mom and her friend had just driven into the street about 2 to 3 miles from our house. The car window was open, but the doors were still shut. They were just about to get out when my mom's friend stopped and said, "That looks like Alan." According to my mom, this man looked exactly like my dad, down to the specific coat, which he wouldn't have needed because it was so hot, and mustache. He passed the car, and Mom and her friend were like, "That's so weird." Then my mom's friend looked in the rearview mirror and went, "Vicky, he's gone." My mom got out of the car to look, and he was gone. It freaked her out because he didn't have time to walk to the end of the street to leave, and he couldn't have gone into any of the houses because they would have heard the door shut. They delivered the books quickly and left. My mom continued to do the books for another 2 years, but refused to go back to that street again. Almost lost my sister to a couple of drunken guys. She walked down a dark alley to get to the train station. She wore a skirt, a normal, decent skirt. Those guys walked towards her, six-pack in hand, staring at her like predators. When they passed her, she pulled down her skirt further, and the guy turned around and said, "Yeah, pull that skirt down, you whore." She was pissed and didn't think and replied, "You don't have to look anyways." He screamed at her, threatened her, and almost beat her with the full six-pack. She ran away, hearing how the other guy tried to keep him from doing it. I think about it often. I could have lost her to the swing of that six-pack. Why do people drink so much they're willing to hurt someone that bad over a protective statement?
Well, we could say, technically, alcohol lowers inhibitions and makes some people slightly or even very much more bold, so they can act like their true animalistic selves. Not great, but, people are people, and that's not always a good thing.
When I was younger, I used to watch ghost adventures on TV every night. One day, me and some friends decided to go and try to record a ghost voice like people did in the TV show. We had this underground parking in a big building that was the perfect place. We went there at night and started recording and asked questions in our native language. All lights were off for bonus creepiness to this place. After doing a couple of recordings, nothing was heard. When playing back the recorder, we did another try. However, this time, while we were trying to communicate, one of my friends said that he's scared, but not in our native language. He said it in English. We decided to stop recording and go outside, so we listened to the audio in a safe place. Once we heard the part where he says he's scared, a girl's voice was heard saying, "Then you should be crying." Everyone freaked out since that was a little girl's voice that we did not hear at all when we were down there, but could be heard clearly on the recording. Half an hour later, we got a fire extinguisher and decided to use it inside and visit the underground parking lot the next night when the dust had settled on the ground and we can see if there are any footsteps. Next night, we go back again. Dust had settled. We look and carefully inspect the area. There were footsteps next to a wall that is in the corner, where there's no other exits or entrances. I'm talking about small footsteps that come out of the wall and end like a meter away from it, where it meets the center of the place, nowhere close to the exit. We decided to give the recorder one more try, but this time we spoke English. We began recording. Everyone was in the center of the place, and then I asked if you could understand. Can you please knock on the wall twice? 2 knocks were heard on a wood, though everything was concrete and there was no wooden object in that place. We all got scared so much that we ran away and never visited that place again. Weirdest part was, when I heard the knocks, it was physically almost impossible for me to start moving to the exit, like someone was not letting me go. Very disturbing story. I may go back one day and give it another go, now that there's much better cameras, recorders, and such stuff. It could be possible to find what's going on 12 years later because it keeps bothering me to this day. So it was an afternoon, and I was in my house with my grandpa, 2 siblings, and 2 cousins. My mom, grandma, dad, and aunt were somewhere. So it was time to go to the mosque, which is super close to our house. Somehow, we forgot that my sister would be alone. So she was alone and hears someone come. She got scared, so came to the mosque and waited for us while we were praying. So when we were going back home, my grandpa goes to a funeral and leaves us alone. My sister did not tell anything about what she heard. So we go inside, the doors open, and start hearing some noises from upstairs. We all just shh, and then hear a loud bang. We all started to run outside. All of us are scared and freaking out. My brother goes to call someone. I was the only one left in the yard because my cousins and sister went with my brother, so I started recording. The door was opened, so I saw someone go upstairs, but just his arm. So I absolutely freak out. Finally, 2 dudes come and ask what's happening. While we're telling them, I saw my dad go down the stairs. Told the dudes that it was my dad and thanked them. My dad came early and was fixing the shower. That's what the noises were. We were relieved and had a laugh about it, so not really anything scary, but definitely got our blood rushing. The time I'd been going for a walk down the road with my elderly dog Pinto. About a mile in, a large van had stopped in the road in front of us. The person driving got out and began walking toward us. I didn't move, still trying to figure out what the person looked like when my 8-year-old rat terrier burst into a sprint in the opposite direction. Trusting her instincts and already creeped out, I ran as well. Keep in mind I live in the country and was in at least a third of a mile of just cornfields on either side of the road, no houses. I ran for my life. I can't think of a time I ran that much and that fast, but Pinto was always ahead of me, not slowing down for a second. The whole time we ran down that road, the guy had gotten back in his van and was following us at just enough distance to where whoever was driving could keep up with us, a few feet back even at Pinto and I's fastest. The second Pinto and I turned onto one of the more main roads where houses were, the guy took a dirt road going a different direction. Pinto was still freaked out and running, and being young at the time, so was I. We ran the rest of the way home. I don't remember a time I was ever that scared before. Pinto got lots of water and treats. I still credit her to saving me. Back when house parties were a thing, a group of my friends were out and about at a party at some house in the woods. Some dude a friend didn't get along with starts a fight, and they decide to take it out into the orchards because the kid whose house it was didn't want anything damaged at his house. So there's about 6 of us, and just the one guy on the other side. He feels like he's about to get jumped, so he calls his friends to back him up. We had no intention of jumping in. It was between them. We just happened to all be there. So this guy's friends show up, and everyone is yelling and posturing. One of them is just standing behind them all, holding his pants up by the side of his belt. Now, I know his body language meant he was hiding a gun, but back then I didn't know this. So we're all pushing and shoving. Come on then, come on, let's go. You know the drill. Before anyone could throw a punch, the dude in the back shoots 3 shots in the air, and we all scatter. The whole party scattered. My stomach still drops when I think of that night, how close any one of my friends, or even me, could have come to dying that night for a stupid effing fight.
Yes, I'm of that generation that very much remembers house parties, and I don't know why it's not a thing anymore. I guess the internet? Who knows? But yeah, it's sad that there was a time when you could just square up with somebody and fight, and then that'd be it. Now everybody's got a knife, or a gun, machete. I don't know, man. Violence is never the answer.
When I was younger, probably like 9 or 10, my brother and I used to share a room. It was down the hall from my parents, and there was a closet door and a bathroom door in between us. One night, my dad was out late working, and my sister was at summer camp. That meant it was just my brother, my mom, and I in the house. For context, we live in a house built sometime in the 1890s. Not really important, but makes it more creepy, I think. So it was probably 9 to 10 p.m., and we were all in bed. We heard some doors open and close downstairs multiple times. My brother and I assumed it was our dad coming home until we kept hearing them. We got scared and ran to our mom's room. She said it was probably just our dad coming home, but she called him and he was still working. We were all very creeped out, but didn't want to go check downstairs. So our mom told us to go back to bed and said it was probably just a wind gust, which at the time I somewhat believed, but now I realize was definitely not true. So we got back in bed, and I could have sworn I heard someone playing the piano downstairs. My brother says he didn't hear it, but I definitely did. This next part is what scared me the most. All the doors from downstairs had stopped, but then the closet door in the hallway, I mentioned, started very violently and quickly opening and closing over and over. In fact, it was so violent that the next morning we found that the doorknob had fallen off. My brother and I ran into our mom's room again, past the closet door. I remember seeing it open and close, but when we went past it, it stopped, then started again when we were past. Once again, my mom said it was wind. More believable this time because the closet is connected to the attic, which does get drafts. However, with how violent it was, there was no way it was the wind. We went back to bed eventually, and it stopped. I still can't explain it, and nothing like it has ever happened in that house since.